Hey friends, this is Tim Stevens with LeadingSmart, and I'm joined here by my friend Dave Dummitt, my friend and associate Dave
Oh,
Dummitt.
come on.
Come on, who has his hands on lots of things, but one of them is we're working together at LeadingSmart. And so one thing we want to talk about today is something that most people don't think of when they think of Leading Smart. So a lot of people think, well, Leading Smart does executive pastor gatherings, Leading Smart does some coaching for executive leaders. We do succession consulting, which is growing, and we love doing that. But one thing that we do that most people don't know about is a thing we call strategic advising. And that's something like specifically that Dave and I are doing with churches. And so we just wanted to unpack that a little bit and talk about what's the difference between strategic advising and coaching and how does that look different? And so Dave, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's unpack it. Um, I think of it as coming alongside of a church as a thought partner,
Okay.
as sitting in the room. You and I were talking about this yesterday, and you were talking about, how you're viewing coaching different than advising. You want to unpack that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I think of coaching, I think of consulting, and then this idea of being a strategic advisor. To me, I don't know that there is so much a difference in kind as much as maybe a difference in degree. When
Mm.
you're thinking coaching and consulting, obviously there's some differences even between those two, but often you're spending some time with that senior leader. You might spend some time with their team, but you're really focused on that senior leader, and you might be spending time with them to overcome one specific issue. We're doing a fundraising deal, so I'm going to help them with generosity, or it's a succession issue, so we're coming in to deal with that one thing. I think a strategic advisor, again, I don't think it's a difference in kind, but it's just a difference in degree. So as a strategic advisor, I'm coming alongside that person. I'm kind of embedded in some of those key meetings with key team members, which then helps me as a strategic advisor come alongside and say, I'm not just listening to your perspective as the senior leader. Tell me what's going on with your staff. I've been with your staff. And so I, with you, am discussing kind of what's going on. How do we address the issues? Hopefully, I'm asking good questions to help people kind of come up with the answers themselves.
Yeah, and we really like to orient these around like your big meeting days. So when I'm sitting with a senior pastor, if their big meeting days are Tuesdays or if their big meeting days are Wednesdays, it's like that's the day I want to be there because I want to be embedded in your lead team meetings and some of these secondary meetings. Again, like you said, so I can get to know the team, so we can get to know that senior leader, how he or she interacts with the team, and really get a sense of what's going on at the ground level. And a lot of times it's unpacking. Whereas someone brings us in for succession, they're like working specifically on succession. As a strategic advisor, we're just jumping in and helping them on whatever they're trying to untangle in that season, which changes. Typically our model is a 12-month retainer. So we're sitting with you for 12 plus months, and those challenges will change as time goes on. And you have like an extra experienced person in the room that's just helping you kind of work through difficulties, people challenges, opportunity, strategic direction that you haven't had to, or that when you typically don't have that person sitting in the room with you.
Yeah. And we're coming in like because we're on the team, but we're not really on the team. There's sort of an objectivity, I think. Like I'm not emotionally connected to the last 5 years of your ministry or the last 10 years. I'm not emotionally connected to whatever sacred cows or those kinds of things. So, I think there's an objectivity that we can bring to the team and hopefully just a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think the experience is helpful. So a lot of times, and Dave led two large churches. I've been involved in two large churches, and so you get people on the team, and you tend to be like head down, like you're solving problems, whatever. It's hard to like kind of like get your head up and see the context of just the church landscape, the cultural landscape. And so, whereas you and I get a chance to work with a lot of different churches, so we're able to get that perspective and that context from a lot of churches. And okay, what are they doing to solve this particular issue? Like, how did they tackle this particular thing?
Yeah, I totally agree. But I would add one of the things that yes, I've kind of helped with two large churches, but those are two very different circumstances. And I know your experience has been different as well. Like, what we did with 242, that was a church that was 35, 0 to, large. And with Willow, this was a sort of a turnaround situation. So there's a lot of different experiences. And I think it's one of the things I'm grateful for the last 5 years at Willow is like it kind of rounds out my church experience where I don't think there's too many pastors around the country that I couldn't put my arm around them and be like, hey, um, I've been where you are. I've experienced what you're experiencing, whether it's a culture issue, a staffing issue, generosity issue, trying to figure out, do we add services or do we build? Those kinds of things. And I might not have the answer, but I can tell you, here's what we did, and here was the result. And so I think, and you as well, like you had very different church experiences too. And so I don't think this is just for the large churches. I think it's for a lot of different kinds of churches.
Yeah, I agree because it's interesting. What's unique about both you and I is we've been at churches that were 100, that were 200, and the old school, some of the old school teaching curriculum was like, how do you break through the 600 barrier, the 800 barrier, the 1200 barrier? Well, we've led and broken through those barriers in the 2000 and the 5000, as well as like what you just mentioned is church that's like plateaued and they can't figure it out. Like, how do we get this thing turned around and thriving again? And sometimes that's strategy, sometimes it's people, a lot of times it's both. And again, like you said, we don't have the emotional ties. It's hard, it's hard to think through it. If you've led a church for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, and you're like, man, I just don't know if it's a people problem, but I mean, you love these people. You've done life with them. You've been in small groups with them. You've been in the foxhole with them. So it's tough to have objectivity with whether that person is the right person to help you move into the future. It's not just that, but that's a piece of it.
Yeah, because sometimes it's not about finding the right strategic advisor, coach, consultant, whatever, for the season you're in, but it's finding the right person for the season you want to go to. And I was just with a church, one of the top 10 fastest growing churches in the country. We spent a week together dealing with, they kind of brought their leadership team together, even some of their board together. And it was basically a vision retreat. And they were trying to figure out how do we steward this growth. And, we found kind of over our time together, the big question was, what brought us here and what's going to take us there can be different things. And so we really analyzed, hey, we're growing so fast. What are the reasons that we're growing so like how did God grow us because of the things that we're doing? And then how has God grown us in spite of the things that we're doing and trying to figure out the differences in those things because getting to where they are now and then where they want to go, those were two different things to sort through.
And you're helping unlock for them too. Like, at the size they are now, they don't have any idea what they're going to be challenges are going to be when they're twice the size they are now. But you've been able to be there with them. It's been fun. I've been working with a couple different churches in this strategic advising model. And, the stuff that you get into, sometimes it's health at the lead team. And like there's maybe some dysfunction there or just a way that we're not actually moving the ball forward because we don't have health at the top. And so you get to work on that. Sometimes it's governance clarity. It's like staff board issues where it's like you've got some things that maybe the board model worked when you were a church of 600, but now you're a church of 2000 and it's showing these strains and it's going to like kill you if you don't figure that out. Sometimes it's team culture, team health. One of the churches I worked with said, hey, we have a campus we're just having some staff culture issues and we don't really know what's going on there. We need someone objective. And so one of my visits with them, I spent a day or two, actually 2 full days, just diving in, embedding myself with that team and then helping kind of that surface like, okay, here's some of the issues that you really need to focus on for that campus to thrive. Lots of different things, come up in these conversations.
For sure. And I love the title because you picked it as a strategic advisor. Like I'm not coming in as a strategic expert. I'm coming in as a strategic advisor. And one of the things is I've been there doing what they've done, and I have connections to, who were the people that I reached out to when I faced this challenge or this challenge or that challenge over the course of 30 years of ministry. I've seen you do this too. It's like, hey, yes, I have some experience in this particular topic, but I wouldn't say I'm the best person to talk to. But guess what? I know this person and can connect you for a 30-minute call or that sort of thing. And I think that's been really helpful too.
Yeah, that's great because it's not we're not going to walk in with all of the answers, all the knowledge, of course, but the connections, the partnership, the relationships that we can help connect that church to can be super helpful. So you might like be thinking like, how do I know like when is, do I need this or not? Is this going to be helpful or not? And I think it's like some different times when it might be helpful to bring in a strategic advisor to bring Dave or I into the room with you and your lead team, is if you're like on the precipice of something, you're beginning to start something. Maybe it is a succession thing. Maybe it's a capital campaign. Maybe it's an expansion. Maybe you're talking about adding campuses. You're diving into something that's new for you and you need some strategic advising around that. Another time would be if you feel like you're making decisions in isolation. Like a lot of times I talk to lead pastors and they feel very alone because everyone around them works for them. And so they don't know that they're actually getting all of the truth. They don't know that they're actually being heard. And so you might feel like you're making some decisions in isolation. Did you smile because you've experienced that?
Oh, come on. The higher up you go, the less true information you get. Okay.
Yeah, so true. Another time is like if like just your staff dynamic, staff health, staff culture, staff alignment feels off, like something's just not clicking. Maybe you're having high turnover, maybe people are, leaving and they're being nice in the route, but there's something going on and you can't figure it out. Another time, I think this is important too, is if you feel like you might be feel like you're in a rut, you're stuck in some way, you're like you maybe feel like you have too many insiders, you're not making decisions in light of what's actually working or not working in churches and in culture across the country. And like you just need some fresh eyes, fresh thinking. Sometimes you get that when you hire a new staff person from the outside on your team, but typically their knowledge-based, experience-based is focused in an area. And so that might be a time when you're like, okay, this is the time to actually bring someone in and help us with this.
Tim, I'd add to when you are nervous that you are the lid to your organization's growth and you don't want to tell anybody about that because you feel like if they figured that out, if they knew what you knew, then your time there would be short. I don't know how many leaders kind of have this imposter syndrome where you feel like you might be the lid. Man, I love coming alongside a leader like that and saying, hey, you know what? You might not have this strength or this experience or that to, imitate what someone else has done. But you might just be the leader that God has put in this place at this time, and He might want to do something new and unique through you, through your strengths, through your weaknesses. And we just got to figure out together, what does that look like? Am I bringing somebody on the team that balances out my gifts? Am I finding some information or some new training or challenge, growing myself in a way that gets me ready to take my church into that new challenge? So I feel like there's a bit of a confidant relationship with your
Yeah.
strategic advisor. I mean, we're not counselors, but we become that trusted person that you can bounce those things off of that you might not walk into your board meeting and go, "Hey guys, I want to share this with you."
Yeah, that's right. And again, it goes back to that sense of isolation and a sense of like, and a lot of times leaders, if they've been in a church, senior leaders, if they've been in a church for any time at all, for a long time, they're carrying wounds. And a lot of times those wounds create walls. We build up walls because we don't get hurt again. because, staff person that we did life with for 8 years left us. And this founding member of the church that was, supporting, they left us, and they left us not because they didn't like the music. It's because they didn't like us. Like it was something about us and our leaders. So you carry those wounds. And so sometimes then your decision making is affected by the wounds, and you just need insight. You need objective, someone from the outside saying, you know what, I think you can push into that. I think you can engage this conversation. I think you can go down that road, even though it's scary because you went down it before and you got, your head cut off. So I think that outside objectivity can be super helpful.
It's good.
So here's the deal. Dave and I we're going to do about two of these at a time. And so Dave is finishing up at Willow at the end of the summer. And so starting in September, he has space for a couple of these. And so if you're interested in having Dave in the room with you as a strategic advisor, then now's the time to start that conversation, and then fully engage that here towards the end of the summer, early fall. I do two or three of these at a time. I have two going right now, so I've got space for one or two. And so if that's interesting to you, then love to engage in that conversation as well. But today we just wanted to kind of like get that on the radar. This is a service that Dave and I get to do, come alongside of churches. And I tell you what, of everything I do, Dave, like there's nothing more fulfilling than sitting with a pastor in their context and helping them see things they can't see, consider things they've never considered. And sometimes just listening to their story and their heart and helping them figure out the next steps to take.
Yeah. And I know, like talking with you over the last 6 months, even a year, thinking through this transition at Willow, I think one of the things that I was a little concerned about was I've always had a team. I didn't want to go out on my own and do, and I have loved coming alongside of not just the senior leader, but the team, and feel like you're kind of, in the mix of things. And I've watched, I don't know, I just come alive in that situation. So I love it.
Yeah, and it's not like you're adding a full-time staff person to your team, but you're adding someone. Obviously, we talked about this, that carries the experience and can help you with challenge and stuff, but also just to access. So we only do two or three of these at a time, and those two or three people have the most amount of access, texting, quick calls, those kinds of things in between times when we're actually physically with you in person. And so it really does become a sense of like consistent access and availability. And for us, our hearts, like, when I think about the two churches I'm working with right now, like my hearts are with those churches more than anyone else I'm working with or around, because I'm there. I feel like I'm one of them, and yet still have that outside objectivity.
Love it.
All right. So next steps, feel free to reach out to myself, to Dave. Go to leadingsmart.com. There's a button that says let's connect or let's talk or something like that. So figure that out, and then we'll get on a call with you and just see. It may not be a good fit. We typically do these 12 months at a time. If you're like, I don't know, then let's jump into it for 6 months. Let's get on a phone call and just get a sense of if there's synergy and relationship.
Yeah, it's an intense relationship.
Yeah.
It's designed that way. So it could be that you need a coach or you need a consultant to come in first, but this is something it's unique. So
Yeah.
it's different things for different people.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well, Dave, it's always fun talking to you. Thanks for helping me try to untangle this a little bit, since it's a bit confusing as to this part of what we do.
I love it. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.